Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Phil's Recap and Review, The Sopranos, Season 1, Episode 1, The Pilot. And I am here today to talk about The Sopranos. We're starting a new adventure. We're going to go through the entire Sopranos series. And today, with me, isn't Dirty Locks. It is someone else that's dirty, related to Dirty Locks. Dirty Locks' cousin. No, not really. But Dirty Locks and I's very good friend from the time we were growing up, Big Daddy Matt. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Matt and I've known Matt since probably around the third grade, and we've grown up. We used to play a lot of video games together, and I mean, we've just known each other for a really long time.
Yeah, it's like 25 years now. It's all longer. It's like closer to 30 years than 25.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But one thing we've been talking about a lot, especially since I've started podcasting, Matt used to come a lot onto the old radio show that I did on WMWM. But Matt and I have been talking a lot about our favorite TV shows, and a show that's very connected to me, very connected to Matt, very connected to Joe, who's going to join us occasionally in these podcasts, is The Sopranos. And Matt and I have constantly been batting the question back and forth. Sopranos or Breaking Bad is two of our favorite series. And we're going to start this now and start by reviewing all of The Sopranos in its entirety. Now, to give you a little information about Matt and Joe and I compared to The Sopranos was a show that was probably one of those first must see, you have to see what happens next shows in my life that I really remember like that, to the point that when we lost HBO and I didn't have HBO at my house, Joe and I, both of us, would show up at Matt's apartment unannounced, knocking on his door on Sunday evenings just so we could watch The Sopranos.
I didn't have a couch. I pulled out chairs from the kitchen and we sat on those.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah,
it was, and we would you'd have to watch it to a certain extent. And the age that we live in television, where everything is these longer story arcs, really did become, and I'm not going to say started, because you had shows like St. Elsewhere, Oz, Deep Space Nine, a lot of other programs that did it. But The Sopranos really catapulted this era of television that we're into. I think it was the starting point. It was there were rock and roll bands before Elvis, or rock and roll people before Elvis or before the Beatles, but the one that broke through and let everyone else be known was The Sopranos, in my mind.
Right.
And so we thought about some fun thing to do. So we're going to go back and we're going to recap the entire series. And if you want to join us and share your thoughts of The Sopranos episode 1 and any of The Sopranos, you can jump in the chat live with us while we're recording this live. If you're listening to this later on iTunes, we record this on YouTube, so subscribe to Phil the Issues Guy YouTube page so you can find out when we do these live. But if you're listening to this at a different time, you can email me at igotissuesman@gmail.com. You can even call us in here at 781-990-8509 and ask us questions. And we're going to be going all through this. And we also we're not alone. Also, we have with us our good friends in the chat. How's it going, chat? Our good friend Tim. How's it going, Tim? And Tim says, Deep Space Nine started on Phil. Grow your beard. Started all over again. Yeah, I have to start from scratch. I actually had to shave it for an audition for something. So it's growing all back. And then right after I auditioned, they're like, you look better in the beard. Grow it back. And Tim also says, let's see how the all new different Joe does.
Oh, my God. All the pressure. I love it.
I know. The pressure to be Dirty Locks. So we're really happy to have you here, Matt. Thanks for finally, and this I think is officially, if we have to say it, it's officially Matt's first podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time Matt is podcasting. Sopranos came later. Hey, Tim, welcome to the show, Tim. Thanks for checking us out. And we'll see if we can, this is our first broadcast of it, so we appreciate anyone that's coming in and checking us out live talking about The Sopranos here. So
it's our pilot episode, so.
It is. So we might work out some kinks. It is definitely our pilot episode of The Sopranos. And you know what? Matt and I we need excuses to Yenta. We Yenta really well. He's one of my favorite Yenta people. So let's get into this. Now, before we get into the actual episode of The Sopranos, it's interesting to mention how The Sopranos came to be. Now, originally when David Chase conceived this idea, he wanted it He wanted it as a movie, and he shopped it around for a movie for several years, and the script always got rejected. No one wanted to make this. I think because the world, and it's interesting to think, I know a lot of people of this modern generations that heard all of us, Matt, say that The Sopranos is the greatest show of all time, and there's a backlash towards that, where people are like, The Sopranos wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. And I understand that philosophy. It's in a sense, it needs to be understood that it came out before a lot of these shows like Breaking Bad and a lot of these other things. So it set the groundwork for a lot of things. But at the time, what I think made it so great, even in this first episode, is at the time we were so ingrained to things like The Godfather, which was in the 70s, but through the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, where mafia movies were such a mainstay of everything. You every year, Mickey, Blue Eye. I mean, I could go on for a long time about how many ridiculous mafia type movies there were, and The Sopranos kind of just kicked all of their asses. It took what you expected from that genre, and in that first episode, right away when Tony goes into his speech to Milfy, it's something different. You know, it's something completely different. Now, what was your first experience watching The Sopranos? Did you watch it from the beginning, or what season did you come in?
I want to say I probably came in around season, there was a total of 6, right? And the second one was cut in half. I came in probably around end of season 4, beginning of season 5. But what I did was I actually, at the time, I think Comcast released like each season at a time. So I binge watched each season and caught up sometime around the beginning of season 5, and then watched season 5 and 6 live when it happened.
Absolutely.
So in the period, and it was like crazy because I did it in like the period of a month. So you start talking like them and thinking about it because it's nonstop, like hour after hour after hour. It's like when you play too much GTA and you actually you go up to a stoplight and like, I can get out and then grab that guy's car. That's what I started thinking like. But so I probably watched the last 2 seasons live.
Now, I want to mention something before we go any further to anyone who happens to be watching this. If this exists, someone who's watching us that has not watched the series The Sopranos yet, this is not going to be like Joe and I's Game of Thrones rewatch where we're jumping in the DeLorean and going back in time. We're going to talk about this referentially, that we can talk about the end, the beginning, and make references to things that were set up. This is going to be kind of like a look back at it, not a first time, pretending like we're watching it for the first time. Because I want to mention something that Tim says right off the bat. Well, the end of The Sopranos kind of made the whole thing bad. And I think that's something I want to look at and talk about right now as we start, Matt. Ask that question. Because I agree that The Sopranos ending kind of bites. I don't think it's a good ending.
I agree.
But does the end, if you run through like a pile of like naked women giving you chocolate bars, and at the end you have to jump in a pile of shit, does it make walking through the naked women not worth it? I still think the adventure of going through all those naked women was worth it to jump in the shit.
I do, and I think at the time, well, sadly, when it happened, you always said, okay, well, there's going to be more. They're going to do a movie. And unfortunately now, there's no chance that's ever going to happen. And so I can always kind of tell myself, like, all right, this isn't the actual end. This will happen at some point. They'll tie this together. They're setting this up for a movie. And obviously with James Gandolfini not around, that's not happening anymore. But.
And absolutely, Joe, I just almost called you Joe, Matt.
It's all right.
The thing is, I agree with you 100%. And I also think that because of I think Chase always figured he'd make a movie at some point, no matter what he said.
At least leave the door open for it if he decided he wanted to at some point.
And that's why you get the fucked up ending. That's why you get that kind of ending where he doesn't make a decision. He wants to keep you on the fence there, so he can make a decision either way. So if no one agrees to a movie, you can't do it. Because even in the series, towards the end of it, when we get into the last season, there's this whole side plot that never really gets explored about some of Tony's people are now working for the FBI, and the FBI is building this case on him through the entire season.
Right.
That never pays off. That always led to me to believe that the movie was going to be the trial of Tony Soprano and him having flashbacks of different times in his life while he was on trial. And I think Gandolfini, right before he died, he did some movie called The Drop, which is on HBO Go if you haven't seen it. It's a really awesome movie where he's almost playing a Tony-like character. I think Gandolfini would have eventually gotten to the place where he would have wanted to play Tony again. I think I understand where at first he didn't want to do that and didn't want to do characters like that, but I think he would have gotten to that place eventually.
Yeah, and he was, from what I read at the time, he was kind of all set with Tony towards the end. I believe the point for him was what happened with him and Christopher, the way Christopher ended, if you will. I don't want to like spoil that yet. I know we can talk about it, but like he even said, I'm kind of all set with this character at this point. Like that crossed the line for him when it happened.
I think him, absolutely, Matt. I think him and Chase, and that's why you get a lot of the horrible things Tony does in the final season, because leading up to this, and especially as we're going to get talking about our first season and our second season, these people are really glorified and their bad deeds are sort of glazed over.
Right.
When we look at these people as heroes, like you would look at Jesse James' gang or something like that if you were watching an old Western. And it's interesting to note that in the last season, both James Gandolfini and David Chase both wanted to make sure to remind you that Tony, yes, in fact, is a fucking sociopath.
Yeah, you stop rooting for him at the end.
Exactly.
You're rooting for his side, which is weird because you want, Paulie to end up on top, but like, you're still rooting. You're not obviously rooting against Tony at the end, but you realize that it's almost easier to let go because you're like, how am I rooting for this person anymore? How do I really want to see what happens to this guy anymore? But
Tim says, well, I was born in 85, so it came out when he was in high school. That would be interesting to the Sopranos to have been out when you were in high school. And was it something that people were into in your school? Were people talking about the Sopranos? Or would you say that it was more something that your parents show? My point is, I kind of was in and out for the first time. Later on, went back to watching it all the way through. Okay, so we kind of just answered my question right there. At the time, you were in and out, not really watching it, occasionally picking up an episode. But by the end, then you rewatch the whole thing. And it's fair to say the question that we're going to keep hanging out there like a matzo ball in the wind is, does the ending screw up everything that happens? Or can we look at, to me, The Sopranos comes off more like each individual chapter is its own universe into itself. I think at certain point in time, and as we get into later parts of season 2, and really when we get into 4 and 5, it seems like they try to bridge everything together into one coherent universe. And I think where The Sopranos isn't as successful as some later shows in the same like long drama thing is keeping it as one big world. Each season feels very individual to the other season. And then it always seems like there's going to be this bigger mystical thing going through it all. But really, it's just a deeper look at the realities of their life. And at the end, you're just like, okay, it is what it is. It's about a fucking mafia guy.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we're sprinkled through with all the dream sequence episodes and all the Kevin Finnery shit. So we're gonna go from
part of it is you talked about how it's the first show to do this, and like they have no idea if this is gonna last 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons. Nothing had that hype where there was that almost that pressure on the people to keep creating that huge, that hugely successful product, where people had no idea, like, okay, how long is this supposed to last for? Is this supposed to last for 10 years? Is it supposed to last for 3 years? Where I think by the time Breaking Bad comes out, he kind of knows it's going to be the number of seasons that it is, and that's it once it catches on, and you can kind of plan for the arc to end at a certain point, where this was, let's see what's going to happen with this.
Exactly. And then eventually and that goes back to what we were saying originally when we started this conversation, that originally this was passed around like a script, like for a movie, and people didn't like it. Eventually, Lloyd Braun, David Chase's agent, suggested to him that he turn it into a television series and add a little bit more comedy because of certain referential comparisons, in the sense that both were written individually, but it had some comparisons to analyze this and all that sort of thing. So it was developed a little bit more satirical, and because initially it was a lot about David Chase's life. Not that he was a mafia guy, but he had a similar relationship with his mother that Tony had with his mother. So he kind of wrote this from a place of his own volition, which hence, as we'll get into it when we start talking about season 3, and the original idea for the ending of The Sopranos, which had to get all fucked up because one of the actors or actresses died during the filming. The end of The Sopranos would have had a lot more to do with Tony's mother, and theoretical end of the series, from what I've heard from Chase saying, the original idea for the end of the series would be ending with Tony finally killing his mother. His mother in season 3 testifying against him because of the airplane stuff that's set up in season 2. And in season 4, she's in witness protection program. He's constantly trying to find her. And the series ultimately ending in season 5 or 6 with him catching her and killing her. So it's interesting to say that David Chase also had to completely change things up in season 3. And it's noticeable and becomes a very different show in season 3 and onward, I think. The first 2 seasons, again, have a little bit more of a continuity to it.
I know you got huge problems with season 3. I know you do.
I do. I have huge problems. Well, we'll get there.
Right.
But I also want to mention something before we get started, that some gentleman named Robert Bayer from New Jersey sued David Chase, saying that he was as big a part of writing the Sopranos pilot script as David Chase was. And for whatever it's worth, it all got settled out of court. Chase did end up paying this guy a settlement of some sort. So it's worth mentioning that probably is true. So we go to the casting of the Sopranos series, and a lot of the cast of the Sopranos series was in the movie Goodfellas. Do you realize how many members were in Goodfellas? 27 actors total that were in that Goodfellas movie were in the Sopranos at one point.
Not in the pilot, but eventually you're saying.
Eventually in the Sopranos. But in the pilot, we got Lorraine Bracco, Michael, Christopher Moltisanti, and Paulie. We're all in Goodfellas. And in fact, Lorraine Bracco, Milfy, was one of the first people cast in the series. And initially,
she was supposed to be Carmela originally, right?
Absolutely, yes. But she felt like it was too close to her character in Goodfellas, which is interesting to note that the mother on The Sopranos that plays Carmela's mother plays Milfy's mother in Goodfellas. I know it gets a little confusing here, but it's the same woman that plays Milfy's mother. So you can tell why they cast her, because they wanted to bring the mother and daughter over from Goodfellas. And what was great is that if you were an FBI, you watch this, and you're a mob guy, you watch it and you have it all. I agree with that. And I think because of The Sopranos, again, influencing having shows like The Wire later on, The Sopranos did a good job of, yes, it was from the Mafia's perspective, and it was from Tony and all his people's perspective, but at different times in different episodes. There's one episode in particular I'm thinking about, Mr. Somebody's Neighborhood, I believe it's called, where we get the focus completely from the FBI's perspective. There's times when we get it from Dave Scatino, the guy who gets his whole business busted up by Tony. We get a lot of perspective shifts on The Sopranos, which is very good. Gandolfini got the part because of his role in True Romance. Carmela Soprano got her part. Edie Falco basically got her part because of being on the HBO series Oz and being in the HBO wheel bucket, and they wanted to use her, which is interesting because her character got let. Did you ever watch Oz, Matt?
Like 3 episodes years ago when it was originally on.
Her character got left at kind of a cliffhanger on Oz, and then the season ended, and then the next season she just comes on and says, I met some guy in Europe. I'm leaving.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Done. And Steve Van Zandt, who is still, a lot of people know this, but some people might not, Silvio Dante, is a guitar player for the Bruce Springsteen E Street Band. He was a friend of David Chase, who's also from New Jersey, who knew Springsteen and kind of had a relationship with him. He knew Sil, asked Sil to come in and read for Tony initially.
He never acted before.
He never acted before, and they wanted him to play Tony Soprano. But he wasn't quite right for the part of Tony, and they wrote the part of Sil just for him.
And you end up a lot of the great music that was ever in that show. Part of it was his influence. He would talk to David Chase about it and try to get some of those songs in there, because that's one of the best parts of the show.
Absolutely.
It's the music throughout the whole, all the seasons.
I was going to say that right away with the theme song. It just sets the tone for awesome music throughout the series.
But you know what's funny? I've seen an interview with Silvio, and he says, I thought that song was a little too obvious in the beginning. It comes on, I got a gun, like it's too obvious. But it was amazing when I watched the show and I turned it on. I haven't seen a Sopranos in a couple of years at this point. My wife and I used to watch one like randomly, but that's still the sound I wait for after the HBO thing comes up. I still wait for that little bass line to kick in.
I know, and it's once that kicks in, it gets you. It grabs you so well. Well, most people in Oz were in SVU. Absolutely, there was definitely some Oz. No, I heard an FBI wiretap where they were listening to them talking about the Sopranos. That's it. That is interesting, and that goes to, I remember in real and olden times, back in like the '60s and stuff. The Mafia would be tapped, and you'd hear them talking about how much they loved Frank Sinatra or loved like the Godfather movie in the '70s or something. When it really comes down to it. Also, there is some rumors that Paulie, who Tony Circo, is that his name, I believe?
I think it's Sirico, but yeah.
Sirico.
I don't know how it's pronounced, but
was actually connected on some level to the point where his only rule for being signed onto the show was he
never be a rat.
Never be a rat. And that was something I remember we talked about at the time when it was on, like when we were trying to figure out who rats were. We're like, but it can't be Paulie. Paulie said he'd never be a rat. And I also do want to mention that Uncle Junior, Dominic Chaziz or something, I don't know how to pronounce his fucking name, was in Godfather 2. He played Johnny Olaf in Godfather 2. So there's so much connection to all the mafia films of old. And I feel like I'm not even giving...
Phil Leotardo was in...
everything. Yeah, everything. Burt Young. Burt Young was actually who comes in eventually and plays Feech LaMotta, was also brought in to read for...
No, that's... Oh, no, Feech LaMotta is... No, that's Robert Loggia that plays Feech LaMotta.
Oh, okay.
Who did you just say? Frank Young plays...
Burt Young plays Bobby Bacala's father.
That's right. Yeah. Paulie
from Rocky.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Ren. Gosh, I just watched The Godfather 1, 2, and 3 yesterday. I had to make a pot of spaghetti and it ended at midnight. Ren, Ren knows what happened with me. When I was in the hospital, I was like laying in the hospital bed for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, shit. Oh, not 2 days. Excuse me, not 2 weeks. 2 days. And I was like, oh, shit, what am I going to do in the hospital? But there's nothing on hospital television. Click. And then, congratulations, Godfather Marathon. I'm like, yes! My life cannot get better than this. I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be the easiest hospital stay ever. They got The Godfather. But yes, and welcome so much, Ren Renwood, for joining us. And so yeah, there were so many people in back and forth in different mafia movies. Several well-known actors also appeared in just a couple episodes. Ben Kingsley's in a couple episodes. Annette Benning's in a weird episode.
Who's the guy? Why can't I remember his name? He's the orderly in the hospital where
Robert
Johnny
Pat
Sack is. No, Johnny Sack at the end. Who's the guy that's like his friend in the hospital?
Oh, I know who you're talking. I can't think of the name, but I know who you're talking.
He's an actor, and he died. No, he's like a director, and he died afterwards. I can't believe I don't remember his name.
Kim Kang's in it. We also have Robert Patrick's in an episode. Steve Buscemi, obviously, who comes on and later to be on Boardwalk Empire, a show that I just finished as well. And I don't know if you watched that, Matt, but it's worth a watch.
I don't know if Joey Pants is a celebrity or is more of a celebrity for being on the show, but like obviously he was in there. David Lee Roth was in one of the poker games.
David Lee Roth was so was Lawrence Taylor was in one of the poker games. We had a lot of stars, especially once the show hit, wanting to be on there.
Right.
And I agree with the Joey Pants thing. When Joey Pants came on the show, it really elevated it again to another level. How he was introduced was interesting, and we'll get to that when it happens. But he really was a big part of the fundamental. Just Big Pussy was another big part of it. These elements that became such iconic forms on The Sopranos, to the point at the end where, spoiler alert, most of them aren't around. And still, when people think of The Sopranos, they think of Big Pussy. They think of Paulie. They think of Sil. They think of Tony. It's that big group. It's this first season and a half, 2 seasons that really pushes it. So, okay. Where we go. Let's get into this. So Daniel Baldwin's also in an episode, in the Cleaver episode, which I do want to say there's already like a Cleaver reference in this opening episode. It's interesting to see.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see like all the touches that they went back and definitely paid attention as they went on in the series. So, the last thing I want to bring up before we get into the episode, and usually we'll just get right into talking about the episode, but I think it's important this first time we come out here that we give a little bit of historical or whatever reference to The Sopranos and just, what makes us Sopranos fans. To answer my question to you, I also started watching it around season 4. I believe it was the end of season 3, beginning of season 4, and then I went back and binged watch it. And that was harder back then. It was really difficult to binge watch stuff. You'd have to wait for the HBO marathons and then watch them that way. And then I watched those remaining seasons live as they aired, whether it was at your house, whether it was at my house when I still had HBO, whether I remember...
Ilya had it at one point.
I remember at that time period, you could go out to bars and watch The Sopranos. Right. Bars in that last season would show Sopranos episodes. So it was a cultural phenomenon for a little while there. It really was. Really was. So how do you guys think these guys would do in The Walking Dead? How do I think Big Pussy, my pussy? Oh, I love that line. Yeah. Do you think he'd touch my pussy? No, the other pussy. How do I think these guys would do in The Walking Dead? I think I think Tony would probably do pretty well in The Walking Dead. I think his problem would be he'd probably kill everyone around him because ultimately he wouldn't trust anybody. But I think from a standpoint of keeping himself away from people and understanding the concept of trust no one, keep your family close, I think Tony would probably do pretty well. I think most of the Soprano people would probably do pretty well in the zombie apocalypse, personally, except for Paulie and Christopher, as we've seen in Pine Barrens. They would freak the fuck out. That's the closest approximation we can get to these guys in the zombie apocalypse is in Pine Barrens. Oh my gosh. Ren, big pussy or little pussy? I just love my pussy. Hey, Ren. That's making me feel uncomfortable because I know you're a girl. No, I'm kidding. So that's the most sexist thing I've said all day. So anyways, I think Ren is like your wife, Matt, a girl from Texas. Your wife was originally from Texas, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep. I think Ren is also from the state of Texas. So the episode was written by David Chase, and it's also directed by David Chase. It was originally aired on January 10th, 1999, but the episode was filmed a long time before. So there's a lot of differences between the pilot and episode 2, and we're going to get through this. There's a lot of really big differences to the point where I think they changed a lot. There's a lot of speculation that they changed a lot between episode 1 and 2. A couple of really glaring omissions or things that are said in this episode.
One other thing too, David Chase only actually directed 2 episodes, the pilot and the final episode, and that was it. So it's one of the 2 that he actually directed himself to.
Good point. And do you know what the thing I'm talking about mainly, Matt, is?
The thing that changed?
No, the main difference from the pilot until episode 2, the big thing that just jumps out of nowhere, is Jackie Jr. He does not Jackie Jr., Jackie Sr. Jackie
Sr., yeah.
Doesn't exist. In fact, 3 different times in the episode 1, people call Tony the boss of New Jersey.
Yeah.
So it is speculated, and Chase has basically said in the first drafts of the script, Tony's already the boss. And because in the movie, he was supposed to just be the boss, and Junior kind of runs his own crew independent from Tony, but Tony's...
You have no idea what the real like hierarchy is in the first episode. As I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, I see in hindsight, I thought Tony, if I remember, like Tony, you see him rise up through this. But when I watch the pilot, he's already there. He's already considered the boss. Everyone already know who he is.
Yep, and that's because let's just cut through the shit sandwich here, Matt. In this first episode, Tony's the boss. They add a lot of things afterwards. Christopher doesn't have Brendan with him either. We don't have any Brendan, and Junior doesn't have Mikey, which are all big things that all come in episode 2.
And Bobby Bacala is not around. You don't see him at all.
You don't see him at all. But I'm saying even these big people that become big part of certain of those 3 people, they get buddies, so to speak.
Right.
And also to mention, Sil acts like Tony and Artie haven't seen each other in a while. And Sil also acts kind of like he's not completely part of the crew, like he's his own independent contractor.
He says, "Oh, the drinks are on me," when he goes up to the table, where any other time, or he tells the girls, "Oh no, they don't charge them," or something like that when they're sitting at the Bing, where any other time that's just assumed. He doesn't need to tell them that Tony doesn't pay for his drinks at the Bing.
Exactly. Adriana is also in the episode, but she's not Adriana yet. She's playing hostess. But later they recanonize it by making them say that she worked as the hostess at a restaurant.
Right.
A different restaurant. It's not Vesuvio that she's working at in this episode. And Christopher has some other Gumar. Tony's Gumar is played by a different character, but it's the same actor. The priest is played by a different actor, but it's the same character. There's a couple of little things here and there. Tony's accent is way different. It's terrible. Tony's really, really thin as well in the episode, or James Gandolfini's really thin in the episode. So there's a lot of little differences that are worth pointing out as we head into our premiere episode of The Sopranos, which again gets kind of recanonized. Some people call it the pilot. When it's on television, it's called the pilot. When it's on the DVDs, it's called The Sopranos. For our purposes here, we're going to call it the fucking pilot.
And you know what? There have been way worse pilots than that. For sure, we weren't definitely going to get green lighted. It wasn't perfect, but it could be way worse than that.
And it's interesting that it got shopped around for a couple of years before someone picked it up. Because I don't think it's bad. I think it definitely shows where the series could go. And it's interesting that it took a while for HBO to agree to make it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so right from the get-go, we get that theme song. It just grabs you. Some people say the theme doesn't matter of a show, or some people can say it's too obvious, like Matt said. But no show, I think, spells it as well right from the beginning, and it just works. I guess they were trying a lot of different songs, and that one there's just something magical about that, as Matt mentioned earlier. I guess they had trouble with the theme, and they got it at the last minute. They heard it. Excellent choice. I believe it's by the band Alabama. I could be wrong about that. So, and also, it's worth mentioning that the title card in the original airing of the pilot got changed and added the gun to it and all that stuff, because there was a big Jamie Lynn Sigler, whatever her name is, Meadow Soprano, when she auditioned for it with the name The Sopranos, she thought it was a musical.
Yeah.
And then several people which just read the scripts and saw the name The Sopranos thought it was a musical. So they ended up having to change the name or change the title card to make it more obvious that it's not a movie, not a show about opera singers or something.
Right.
So anyway, so we open up in the psychiatrist office. We got the New Jersey mob boss, Tony Soprano. He's in the frame, and he's framed in between two naked legs of a sculpture. And he just looks frustrated as hell, as he's looks really confused, like he's given the and Jennifer Melfi opens the door, and it's again someone we're very familiar with. I think that's another thing about The Sopranos, as we mentioned. We mentioned this a few times, because it has so many actors from The Goodfellas, from The Godfather, from all those types of things. Everyone feels familiar to you. It really has this sense of family. So Melfi opens the door, invites Tony to enter her office. They meet, and he politely closed the door. And right from the very moment of a couple moments of uncertainty in an awkward silence, he looks up smiling in that Tony way. He definitely looks like Tony in this episode. And she begins saying, you're referred to by Dr. Cusimano, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I heard you had a panic attack. He's like, nope, that's what they say. But they did all the work. You know, everything's good. She asks him what he does for a job. We get into the waste management consultant. And she goes, yeah, right. And from the very beginning, what's your impression of the dynamic between the two of them?
I'm going to back up 1 second. The first thing, when it opens up, I think what is amazing about it when I watch it again is you immediately see how incredible the cinematography is from the very first shot of it. They do this really, right after it cuts out between the legs, there's a long shot of Tony, like, and the angle that it takes on the room, it's that same like grandiose cinematography that goes on throughout The Sopranos for like. Yeah.
Right from the go, you're right, Matt. Right from the go, you feel that this is going to be high.
It was meant to be watched on an HD TV, and you know that right away as soon as it opens up. You know, it's going to be high quality, everything about it. It's Tony and Melfi from the very beginning. You know, right when he starts talking to her, you know, they
go right into it. They go. You can see why they wanted to cast her as his wife. And you can see that several times in the series, that if she was Carmela, it would have worked too. I think, I mean,
Carmela was amazing.
No, that we're going to get to her. We're going to get to her real quick. She was next level amazing, but I think it would have worked with her too. I think Edie Falco, they had a gem there, and they didn't realize, like, this is Edie Falco. Like, I'd argue that she is as good playing Carmela as Tony is playing Tony by the end of the series. She's amazing. You hate her so much. And we got Tim, who's a Game of Thrones fan, who hates Cersei. Cersei and Carmela are 1A, 1B. Carmela is next level because Cersei fucks up a lot, okay? Carmela doesn't really fuck up. She does occasionally, but she's calculating as shit. And she's dangerous on every level.
Rightfully so. I would be too if I was married to Tony Soprano.
Absolutely. And we got Sam. Welcome, Sam. Oh my God, I love the Sopranos. No idea you were watching this as well. And I joined the chat. Hi, everybody. Clumsy Toaster. Hey, buddy. I was always taken out by the meta moments. Lots of references to True Romance, Goodfellas, while using actors from True Romance and Goodfellas. Yep. I mean, I get that. There is a lot of meta moments like that in The Sopranos, and especially when you watch them back in a time capsule, it's easy to notice all that. I think because we're hyper aware of that in the culture we live in now. At the time, some of that went over my head, especially the True Romance stuff, because I didn't know that movie as well. But there's a lot of Goodfellas references in the first season and throughout, like with the Christopher shooting the guy in the foot, like all that stuff. It happens. I mean, there's so many like little back and forth. I can understand why that could take you out there. Oh, I will say this: as some other shows and movies have showed ultra realism right from the get-go, even though The Sopranos reflects reality, you're not in a real world. I would argue. I would say there's a sense of mysticism to it all, without throwing it in a better way. Matt, you look like you disagree. Tell me I'm wrong. Go ahead. Don't be afraid.
I just think that The Sopranos could be happening somewhere. That's it. I never for a second think that Breaking Bad could be happening somewhere, because although having said that, there's a scene in the first episode, we haven't gotten into it yet, which doesn't line up with stuff that would have happened afterwards. I mean, I don't know how else I would picture the mafia operating. This is what I picture it to actually be like, is based on The Sopranos at this point. I think that somewhere it could be that corrupt, even if not in this day and age. The way that it works, I think, could have happened at some point. That's all.
No, that's good. That is a good point. And Sam, if you can hear me, try refreshing and lowering your settings. Everyone else tell me, am I coming through okay? Is this an everybody problem, or is it a connection on her level? Hello, Darth Sandwich. Welcome. And I know, Tim, you love Cersei, but you love, I mean, I think I said you hate, but I mean, you love her as an evil character. She makes the show for you in some ways, because she messes up the apple card, because she's, you know, that person you can't quite put your finger on, because she's always fucking stuff up in some ways. Carmela's not like that. Carmela is just calculating, evil, has her agenda that she wants to do. And the evil thing about Carmela is, again, to connect with what you were saying, Matt, I know people like Carmela. She exists.
Oh, yeah.
One time I get on this live show, and it's not a show I've ever watched. That was a weirdly sentence. Sorry, Darth Sandwich. Run for the hills in case you ever want to watch this. I don't tell people to leave, but I don't want to. This is like the Spoil Fest 97.
Oh, definitely worth watching too if you haven't seen it before.
Yes. Also, audio video isn't synced, but both coming in good. Okay, audio video is never fucking synced in this Google Hangout bullshit. I can see that my audio is not synced. It looks like I'm a ninja. That's why I usually put this over my face so it's less noticeable. And who wants to look at this fucking ugly face? Let me just block this shit. Yep. Hey, everybody. Okay, so let's continue on to our thing. So this is just a great scene. Right for the beginning, as Matt said, we get into a flashback of her being like, he's like, I can't talk to a psychiatrist. Are you stressed? And he goes, I've been thinking, and he goes into this speech. And it's just interesting. This is where I mean magical, Matt, because just for a moment, it steps out of reality for a second, and we get this Tony voiceover with this weird music kicking in, this like rock music type thing. And I've been thinking it's better to get in something at the ground floor. I came late to it. And you hear her voiceover back again saying, many people feel like this. And then it just kind of kicks into this whole thing. And we also get the whole information about patient confidentiality and Tony talking about just a lot of things back and forth, which ultimately all leads to the thing that I honestly forgot about when going back into watching this. The ducks.
Yeah.
The fucking ducks. Holy shit. And the ducks just mean so much to him. So anyway, I've been thinking it's better to get into stuff to the ground floor. He begins telling her about how he met a friend for coffee before she stops and explains the concept of doctor-patient confidentiality, hinting that he understands that, you know, what he does. We get our first big thing with the music, with a big setup with no music being in there. And then we see Tony outside looking at the pool. And he walks in and he says, and then suddenly in my pool, there were some wild ducks from Canada or someplace. As we see Tony getting into the water and start feeding the ducks, and Meadow and Hunter, and this is our introduction to Meadow, Hunter, and Carmela. Your dad and those ducks, oy vey. And Meadow is extra douchey in this episode.
Yeah, she really is. Way worse than you remember her later on. And she's you forget that she was unattractive at one point too. Absolutely. Hunter was always like, ugh, but
Hunter Skankarella over there.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that they make her name Skank. But Tony's freaking out about the flying ducks, and he's just getting giddy. We get Carmela and Hunter, and we get this whole side plot about the Aspen trip that back and forth. So we get in, Tony comes in with his shirt off and slaps Carmela in the ass, and he wishes wishes AJ a happy birthday because this is AJ's birthday. And we also get Carmela calling Tony Birdman, which is pretty funny. She goes, Birdman, Birdman. We also get a reference to Tony's Gumar in this scene where Carmela says, are you going to be at AJ's party? And he goes, yeah, I'll be back from work. And she goes, I'm not talking about work. And then we get into more Milfy and Tony where she starts asking him about passing out. So we connect to another flashback that I kind of just skipped over where Tony is talking about Christopher and talking about Christopher's part of the lazy generation. And they're driving to meet, or they're just driving around talking about some shit. Tony rails at Christopher being lazy and he's a problem with the new generation. He's got a brand new Lexus and he doesn't even want to, he just has no work ethic. And soon afterwards, we see this man walk past, and Tony and Christopher notice him. This guy McAfee is his name. And Tony's in the passenger car, and he takes off. He sits in the passenger side while Christopher runs out and starts chasing him. The guy punches Christopher and runs away. And then we get probably one of our most interesting scenes of the episode in the sense of where we eventually go, where Tony gets in the driver's seat of the car to the music, Love Me Like I Do. Do, 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 love me like I do. And he just runs this fucker down. Matt, this was my favorite scene of the episode.
It was, but the only thing with it is I can't ever see Tony Soprano later on doing something in broad daylight with hundreds of people watching this going on, doing that public of a spectacle, just like taking some guy out. That was the only problem I had with it, was that doesn't seem Tony, who's much more careful about stuff later on, tries to keep things like that in, kind of hidden or in his own world, where that happens very much in the real world, out in front of everyone, in front of a hospital, in front of the like the HMO, like in front of the insurance company. Absolutely. That's the only thing that's weird about it. Is it's like Tony would never have done that at any other time, and he would have yelled at Christopher or anyone else that went out and did some public display like that at some point.
And it's not like, there are things that happen to Tony that make him change his mind about things, but even so, this alone is just something that even in episode 2, Tony wouldn't do.
Right, exactly. That's the one thing when I watch it, I'm like, that's really off. Tony would have never done that at any other point.
Oh, we got our friend Big Kev. What's up? Good to see you guys. Good to see this show. I wonder if this was shot with the same cast, would it be better or worse with today's technology? Can't wait to go back and watch some of these again. I would say that if knowing everything we know now and television being the same entity it is today that it was then, like a post-Breaking Bad world that we live in right now. If The Sopranos came out today, all same actors, all same directors, everyone's relatively the same age, I think it would be a better show. A little bit better. I don't think it would be much. I think visually it would probably be tighter, is what I would say, hence to what Matt was saying earlier.
I don't think they would have edited. They had no idea it could have ever gotten as big as it did. Whereas nowadays they could know that because they would know it post Breaking Bad, post other stuff, like, okay, there's a market for this, we can do this well, and there's a place for that.
Absolutely. So the man Alexander McAfee sees Tony and he freaks out, and Tony just basically runs him down, and right before he's doing it, Tony we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I kind of did things out of order. Tony's about to talk about, we saw this guy that owed me money on a debt, and he's about to get to the story of Milf. He's like, can I stop you for a second? Yeah. I know that you're in waste management, but Dr. Cusimano's your neighbor. And he suggests, I know Cusimano. You know what I'm trying to say? And if you're going to tell me about a crime, I'm not going to, I have to report it. I'm supposed to. And Tony gives her this look, this total Tony Soprano smile, and just goes, we had coffee. And then it just clicks right over to the coffee cup being like thrown at the guy, like coffee thrown at Christopher or something. And then Love You Like I Do music as Tony with a big smile is chasing after him, and Chris running after the whole scene. It's just really an amazingly funny moment that again, I have problems with it from it wouldn't happen on the Sopranos standpoint, like you were saying, Matt, like we we're both saying, but it's still so much fun to watch. And it goes to what you were saying about the music selection. The music is just so fucking great. And Tim, I agree with you. A reboot of The Sopranos would suck. But if the question was more, if The Sopranos never happened and it was all the same actors and it was made now, today, if it was an idea that came out now, would it be better or worse with today's technology making shows? In that case, I would just say it would be better because long form television is more the norm. But then that's that whole chicken and egg thing, or that whole paradox thing. If it wasn't for The Sopranos, whether it was first or not, I agree with what you were saying earlier, Tim, where I credit Deep Space Nine for it in a lot of ways. But The Sopranos, whatever it's worth, was the package which made it famous, made that style of film, of television making successful, and show how successful a series could be if you put the time and effort that you put into a movie.
There was money to be made by doing it. The number of people that got HBO just because The Sopranos was on there. People were going out ordering it left and right. Oh, we can actually make money by putting this show on.
And because of that, it's the model that still works to this day, to the sense of now the show on HBO that people are like that with is Game of Thrones. And I'd say, to be honest, Game of Thrones is I think there's been shows on HBO that people love, but I'd say Game of Thrones is the first show since The Sopranos that has that kind of vibe to it. People, even to the nth degree, times 20, to the point where
people like 6 Feet Under loved that show. People liked was
Wire,
it
Deadwood, Wire. People liked all those shows.
True Detective, but that's not the same thing because it's not one season at a time,
Yep, and every season's different in the second season.
Right.
Okay. So it's revealed that McAfee is a compulsive gambler who borrowed money from Tony and couldn't pay it back, as well as badmouthed him. So Tony and Christopher beat the injured man and tell him to rebuild his debt. Shut up and stop crying about it. You're covered in your HMO. And he just beats him in public. And honestly, this is the moment where a big force of plot for The Sopranos later on becomes mentioned here, the HMO scheme that becomes a big part of a later Sopranos and gets talked about later in this episode as well. So in the present, Tony tells Milfy that he's been having bad dreams of late and he feels like his best days are behind him. He has another flashback, waking up one moment, getting his daily news. Oh, this is the whole ducks thing. Carmela gets the children, AJ and Meadow, ready for school. Tony tries to get everybody interested in the ducks, and that just never happens. They're like, we're not just into it. We're just not into those ducks. Tony begins, I already mentioned this, and talks about his career. Then we get into Tony talking about Uncle Junior.
Just one thing before you do Uncle Junior, because it's in the same thing. He said something, because in the way that I have this written down, he mentioned this before then. It was weird when I first heard it, but by the end of the episode, it made sense. He said, when he's talking about what happens early on, he said his father never reached heights like him. He goes, my father never reached heights like me, which I immediately cut to that. One of the best scenes in all of The Sopranos, towards the very end, his scene of closure with Uncle Jew when he's in the
home,
and he says, "You and my dad used to run South Jersey, which is North Jersey, which is like the best line in the entire series." But here he's like, "My father never reached heights like me." In the end of the episode, he goes back to it again. But I thought that might have been a hole in the plot in the beginning that he said that. But then I think about the fact that Uncle Jew never has a house like Tony does. He has one of those old. He was a step below what Tony ever became. And particularly, like you said, in the first episode, they not accidentally, but Tony's the boss in the first episode, even though he really isn't. We find out in the second
to the point where Feach even says that at the end, where he goes, yeah, your father was younger than your uncle and he ran things. Now you run things and you're younger than your uncle. So it's hammered in like several times that Tony's the boss in this first episode. Yeah. So we also get a lot of, in this first thing, we see Tony sitting down in his first big meeting talking about Mazarone construction and everything that's going on with that. We meet Polly in this scene. We meet Silvio in this scene. We meet Pussy in this scene. We meet, and this is where we get the whole thing about Silvio talking about Junior going to whack Pussy Malengo in Vesuvio, which is his friend Artie Bucco's restaurant. And we get this whole thing going back and forth with Uncle Junior where he's talking to Milfy about, I love my uncle, he used to bring me to Yankee games, but he adds to my general stress level. He's a good guy, just getting a little cranky. They set it right up. So again, I said in my notes, it's the feel that Tony's the boss. No mention of Jackie. No, not even a whisper of Jackie. So we get Tony and Christopher going to Vesuvio and greet Junior, who's having dinner there with other associates. And we get Artie Bucco. They sit down. They reminisce about the past. We get our first, Artie, how's your rash? That line right from the beginning, we get that, which comes back about 1 billion times in the series. Roddy, how's your rash? We hear voiceover, Junior's my father's brother, cranky. My uncle used to take me to Yankee games. But he told my girl cousins I'd never be a varsity athlete. And that really hurt my self-esteem, which again is something that majorly comes back later.
Right.
Majorly comes back later. Oh, we have another comment, another question in email. Guys, love The Sopranos. Love Junior. He's my favorite character in the first couple of seasons. Didn't like where they went with him at the end. I hear you on that one. Thank you, 76, phone number 76. I hear you because, I mean, I always loved Junior as a big wise ass and having an edge to him. And at the end, but I think from an acting standpoint, it's a very strong decision and a very strong story turn where they actually have him go. I mean, I don't like it. It's hard to watch sometimes, especially because I have personal relationships with someone that has dementia, and seeing people that like lose their mind like that's kind of personal for me. And same with Stage 4, the episode that Johnny Sack ends up going through what he goes through. They're very tough episodes to watch, but they're done very well.
And again, he's another person just perfectly casted to play Uncle Junior.
How many Cerseys is Carmela worth? 1,000 gold. 1,000 gold Cerseys for Carmela. So, but that being said, I think I'd rather be married to Carmela. Are we doing the murder, bang, kill? Cersei, Carmela. We need one more person for this, for the murder, bang, kill. Oh, I'm killing 2 people. Marry, bang, kill. Murder, bang, kill. It's a lot of killing.
Oh, so, no, what's his name's wife is who you would take there. Breaking Bad's wife.
Oh, yes, Skylar. Yeah,
Skylar. Oh, the worst.
Okay, you marry Skylar, you kill Cersei. And
no, you don't marry Skylar. She's the worst.
Worse than Carmela. Okay, so you finish. I'll go first. I think you marry Skylar if you're not going to be a meth dealer, because you kill Cersei and you fuck Carmela. So you would marry Carmela. You don't know Cersei well enough.
If I'm not Tony, Carmela's fine, because if you don't cheat on her, she's really nice to everyone else. She just hates her husband.
Very true.
Like with Furio, if I was Furio, yeah, I'd marry her.
I hated Artie's wife, Charmaine, says Renren. Yeah, right from the beginning. I fucking hate her. Right from the beginning. Again, she is a douche of epic proportions right from the start. Like, shut up. The mafia. And again, we get a feeling in this episode too, where when Artie complains about or talks about like the house being the place being burned down, he says, "Oh, things were just starting to pick up," meaning that like it's an impression that the restaurant's fairly new, which we know later on that that's not true either. That the restaurant's been around since his father's days. But like, if I'm Charmaine, like, fuck you. Like, the mafia guys, and we find out later on that they build a tab, but that tab doesn't exist at the beginning. It's their pain.
If she just went on the friggin' vacation, it never gets burned down. If she just says, yeah, Roddy, you know what? Let's go away on a trip. That sounds great. Let's go on a free cruise. It never gets burned down.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Like, in her whole rationale, someone's legs got broken for those tickets. What a place on earth. And Artie is such a, how do you say it? He's such a wet spaghetti noodle that you just can't, he has no backbone with her. And when he does have a backbone with her, it's too much. You know, like he's one of those guys that lets people push him and push him and push him instead of letting it seep out one breath at a time so he doesn't explode. He just lets it explode in the wrong time when he beats up Doogie Howser's friend, when he yells at his wife in ways he shouldn't. I mean, there's lots of problems. Clumsy Toaster says, fuck Cersei, kill Skylar and marry Carmela, then divorce her ASAP.
Yeah, but she'll take all your stuff. She'll take all your shit if you divorce her.
She'll try, but she won't actually go to the lawyer in the long run. Remember? She'll just threaten to do it. You just have to remember to go see every lawyer in the area. It's the smartest thing you can do. Okay, so later that day, Tony goes to his mother's house to try to touch base with Livia to try to do some work on Junior for him. So he brings her a CD player, and we get Livia right from the beginning.
Oh yeah.
You won't open the door. Who is this? Who are you? What's going on?
Anthony?
I didn't answer the phone last night because someone called me after dark. It's just hilarious. Her expressions are just amazing. I knew this actress. I was familiar with her, not because of a lot of her work, but I was a big fan of this TV series Cheers. And she plays Frasier Crane's mother on Cheers, Kelsey Grammer's mother on the episode of Cheers that threatens to kill Diane when Diane's going to marry Frasier. And through the whole episode, she's like, whispers, pretends to be nice, like, oh, I'm so nice, and then turns to Diane when no one's looking and goes, I have a gun in my purse and I'm going to shoot you. So I always kind of knew this actress, and she has really awesome comic timing, and she's really alive in this scene interacting with Tony. It's really fun to watch her do her thing. Artie, a lovable douche, says Ren. Perfect way of saying it. Yes, it's hard not to fuck Cersei, says Tim. Yeah, exactly. She's the fuck. If I can just fuck her and get away from her and don't have to deal with her, don't have to get any shame. None of that going on. If I'm not related to her, I'm fucking Cersei. But then because I'm not related to her, she's not going to want to fuck me. So there's problems there. I'll dye my hair blonde for a day and pretend to be a Lannister. Okay, so Artie Jr. could be making a problem for Artie, blah, blah, blah. She refuses to help, saying she doesn't want to help because if Junior has business with Artie, he knows what he's doing. And Tony's like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. They also dance in the scene. They're excellent together. I can see, again, while she was cast with Tony, they have a wonderful balance. They have a give and take. There's almost like a comic timing between the two of them going back and forth. Tony's voice is very bad in the scene, though. This is probably the scene where, I just ate like, his voice is very awful. We also get our first her saying, I'm not living in a nursing home. It's not a nursing home. Matt, what is it? It's not a nursing home. It's a retirement community.
That's right. It's a retirement community over and over again.
Yes, it's a retirement community. And this is we get our first thing of that. So Tony says he loves her, yada, yada, yada. And she says, yes, thank you for helping me out, with everything you do, Tony, but daughters are better than sons at taking care of their mothers. And Tony goes, and just quickly goes to rage between the two of them back and forth.
And that makes no sense either, because, Janice does come back and kiss her ass, doesn't she?
At first, yes, and takes care of her. And this, Ren says, I loved Livia immediately. She was so good at truly being evil. And it's so evident in this episode. And Matt, to go to what I was saying earlier, do you think the end of The Sopranos is better with Livia ultimately as our main villain? Because do you think The Sopranos suffered, and you can talk about this a little bit and however you want thinking about this. Couple points for you to talk about. Do you think that The Sopranos suffered from not really having a full-time antagonist for Tony? It was always different antagonists coming in and out, whereas if Livia hadn't died, she would have been the antagonist for the entire series.
I've purposely not watched any of this show in years because you and I have talked about doing this at some point for the last 2 years now. I have to rewatch it and see how I feel as we go on with it. I can't base that on one episode. You are right. He doesn't have a foil through the whole thing, and they keep dying with with Johnny Sack. I mean, he doesn't really cut it.
No, Johnny Sack doesn't count. It's Richie.
Julia Tarter really hates him.
Yeah, he does. I would have liked it if they introduced Phil early on, though, and made him a thing in season 1 or 2. When you get a line from Corrado in this episode where he says to Livia, Tony thumbs his nose to New York. And it would have been good if we saw that from the beginning. We didn't really get into New York till season fucking 5. And to answer Clumsy Toaster, to be honest, Cersei's the last girl from Game of Thrones I'd fuck. Fuck Daenerys, kill Cersei, marry Brienne. It's interesting. This week they came out that Daenerys is the sexiest woman alive. She wins the award this year for the sexiest girl alive. And I was thinking that she's not even the sexiest girl on her show. I think, is she of age yet? I think I would fuck and marry Sansa. And no, I'd probably fuck Daenerys, then I'd marry Sansa, and I'd kill Cersei. Anyways. Okay, so I love this game. Okay, so we cut over back to the house, and we see Father and Cantola played by a different actor, and Carmela and her hate for Livia is right away as we get the no fucking ZD line from AJ as we find out that Livia's not coming to AJ's birthday party.
That's his best line in the entire series. Is no fucking ZD.
Now, as much as I hate season 3, I think, Matt, you hate AJ Soprano more than pretty much any character on earth, right? Is AJ Soprano...
He's annoying in so many different ways because he starts off being an annoying little shit as he is in the first couple episodes with the no fucking ZD and being a fat little fuck. And nothing wrong with being fat because I'm right here. But then later on, he just becomes like whinier in a completely different way. At the end, I'm just thinking about this. Never a point. There are points in the show when you like Meadow. There's points in the show when you like Carmelo. There's never a point in the show when you like AJ at any point.
I agree with you. Sort of at a certain time where you can almost relate to him, but then he becomes a ridiculously douche in the second half of that season. Clumsy Toaster, I forgot your important part of that comment. And marry Brienne so she could get me on the Star Wars set. I kind of skipped over the funniest part of that whole thing. Good fucking point, sir. Good point. Okay, so back in the present, Tony tells Milfy that the day of the panic attack was also his son's birthday. It was started to happen like ginger ale on the brain. And as he tries to light the barbecue and he finds out Livio's not going to be there, he notices the ducks becoming agitated in the water before flying away. And he gets emotional. We get this operatic music peak, that climax that's really intense. And at that moment, he starts to begin to experience a panic attack. It's ginger ale on the skull. Matt, we're going to get personal here because let me put on my Dr. Phil W. glasses. Now, Matt, have you ever actually had a panic attack?
I don't think so. Kind of. At school, I did one time, but
they did a very good job at depicting it here. A very good job at showing how they come. I personally have had some at times, and in my, I wasn't always a good person in my youth, and at times when I messed around with things I should have messed around and got inside my own mind a little bit. Things I shouldn't have put on my tongue for people that know what I'm talking about. I can understand that. And they symbolize the feeling of your mind crashing in, and the ginger ale on the brain thing. I can totally relate to that. And it's a really fucking great moment. That's Texas cooking, Matt. And by the way, Phil, turn around. She's gone. Oh, shit. Oh, did the cat jump on the drums again? Fucking cat. Oh my God. AJ reminds me of Jake Lloyd from The Phantom Menace. I want to murder him. He played young Anakin Skywalker. Yes.
Oh, the worst.
That's so wizard. That's so wizard, guys. Yeah, you almost like AJ's gonna say that's so wizard. I would say this, that AJ is the least annoying to me in seasons 1 and 2. I think once AJ starts getting a little older, he gets way more fuckety for me. At the beginning, he's almost passable as that wise ass kid. It was right. It might even be in season 1, the episode where they start getting into him at school, when he starts getting into the fight at school. He's just I think he's the weak link of the acting wise of the main core.
Oh yeah.
I think he's clearly the worst actor of the family and of pretty much any of the main actors on the show, including the guy that's the guitar player for Bruce Springsteen. That isn't acting. That's acting isn't his job. Oh, oh shit, there's a person behind me. Oh shit, there's a Klingon behind me. Fuck. There's this fucking scary fuck right there. Fucking Ferengi fuck. Okay, so Daddy falls in the grill. We also get the grill blowing up, which is a kind of fun visual. So, excuse me. So we get Meadow cursing. Oh my God, Syl is actually at the party, who runs there and puts out the fire. And eventually Tony collapses on the lawn as they call 911. And the next day, Tony is in the MRI scan, and we get a kind of funny commentary on the MRI thing where like the people is like, could you not move, sir? If you're going to have to move, if you move, we're going to be here all day. It's just kind of a funny back and forth, considering what we know about Tony and Tony's complaint. Whatever happened to the strong silent type, the Gary Coopers of the world. That's something that comes back several times in the series.
Is that what she says to him? You're going to hell when you die. That's the difference between you and me. I think it's as he's about to go on the MRI machine.
Yes, and that good point. That is another scene that comes back several times. It's referred to throughout the series of The Sopranos. It's that particular line of Carmela saying that to him when he's in his most fragile state in that moment. Clumsy Toaster says, no, the person part. AJ's the worst part was when he became a philosopher for a day. Yeah, when he starts like quoting philosophy and he's like mispronouncing all the names. And Meadow's like, I think it's cunt. Where he's like, it's cunt that said, or I think it's cunt. I think that's the one he's talking about. And when he starts trying to be, to me, the worst AJ moment is when AJ tries to, because yes, spoiler alert, blah, 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 if you're sensitive and you haven't watched the series, when he tries to go in and kill Junior, and he just like drops
God, I forgot that even happened.
And Tony's just like, what'd you do? It's a big fucking nothing. And just Tony and when Tony goes and AJ tries to suffocate himself, to me that was some of the better acting I guess he did on the series. In the end, when he was completely like a douchebag at the end, he's like and he like tries to kill himself in the pool and like it doesn't, and it burns the car. That whole stage of AJ just made my brain hurt. AJ kind of ruined it, said Tim. Carmela said something like, if Tony died, he was going to hell. I was shocked by that. Yeah, it was a really horrible thing for her to say. And I think really quickly shows you who Carmela is because of the whole turnaround. Carmela's nice, but douchey. She's like, it's 6:30 in the end. The kids are worried. Of course. And Tony's like, I'm scared. Do you think I have a brain tumor? And she's like, well, would you rather not know? And Tony's like, okay, we had some good times, right? Like he's trying to like get some love from her. And she goes, no. She goes, you know, why don't you fucking get in love with your Gumar and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, you're around the priest all the time. And she goes, that's not the same thing. I'm trying to worry about my soul. And he goes, oh, it is the same thing. He goes, yeah, you know, maybe there is no difference between me and you. The only difference between me and you is that you're going to go to hell when you die. And then she immediately, like right after that, he gets put into the MRI machine and she turns around and gives him a smile and waves to him like, are you okay, honey? Like gives him the are you okay, honey look. That's Carmela in a fucking gift basket for you right there. Fucking A. So Tony continues narrating his waste management problems to Melfi. He tells him that a fellow associate was able to handle a problem for him. In another flashback, we get Christopher bringing the rival of the waste management group to this garage. We get Christopher's first kill, which comes back a lot of times. We get the sausages line. That's Joe's favorite line from the entire series. You like our spiced sausages? And Christopher kills him. And we also get our first impression of Christopher being someone that wants to be a big gangster as he shoots him like 6 or 7 times as it flashes back to a picture of, I think it was Al Capone.
Yeah.
Just to show you that Al Capone is the mafia guy that wanted to be a star as much as he wanted to be in the mafia. So then we get Tony narrating more Milfy's dealings with Junior and the doctors handling his tests. Tony's arguing with Junior on a golf course, saying this is where we get Tony may be the boss in North Jersey, but he doesn't.
You don't run your Uncle Jew.
Exactly.
Says to him, yeah. One thing he said before this, it was Christopher. There's a scene with Christopher and Tony. I think they're at Vesuvius. I'm not sure though. And it's something that comes up later on too, where you see Christopher telling Tony what to do. You know what you need to do. You need to talk to your uncle.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like Tony can't handle that and never is able to do it. But right away, Christopher's already doing that. And this is well before he's like, you know, before he's made, before he's, you know, all those early scenes when he's still just a fucked up, you know, junkie early on in the show.
We also get a reference to D-Girl in this episode from him where he's talking about selling his movie rights. You're going to go all Henry on me? So Tony's arguing with Junior. And Junior freaks out and says, how many days did I spend playing catch with you? I just love that fucking line. Fucking Junior. We hear more about the family as we see the priest. Can't wait to hear about what mafia movies Tony likes. We hear something about our most dated line of the episode where we hear about laser discs and it's the greatest quality you can get.
No. The most dated line of the show where he goes, we got to go on fucking Sally Jesse Raphael to talk about our problems. That's the most dated line.
Yes, good point back.
Raphael.
The Sally Jesse Raphael line. I forgot about that. So Carmela, and then we get Meadow trying to break back into her house and Carmela grabbing another thing that just doesn't fly later on in the series. Carmela grabbing like a shotgun and goes outside and like almost shoots Meadow, and AJ, being the little prick he did, lock the window on her. And
to everyone, he's such a little prick.
Yes, and she turns to Meadow, and we set up in the first season something that doesn't really get explored too much, but it's very prevalent in the first season, how Meadow is Tony's daughter and AJ's an idiot, that Meadow has Tony's evil in him. And it gets hinted at a lot in season 1, but never really gets explored past season 1. It kind of just disappears. Meadow becomes a pretty different character, both visually. I'm still convinced the girl had some sort of nose job, and where she says she hasn't, that she just changed her looks, but she looks so fucking different. It almost looks like the actress is wearing a mask that compared to what she looks like later.
At the end of the show, you forget she was a fuck up at one point. You know what I mean? Or early on, she totally was.
Exactly. Ren, I keep thinking, I hope to God that they clean the equipment before they make more sausages. There's a couple of times where Tony or some people where I think it might be Christopher talking to the girl in the last season that him and Tony have issues with, where he says, "Hey, I once I started working in this job, I didn't eat it. I never eat at Satriali's. I would never eat there."
Which was, if you noticed, was not called Satriali's in the first episode either.
Nope, it was not. It was not.
Centani's, I think I wrote that down. Was Centani's is the name of the place where they filmed it.
And I don't think Sill's place gets the name the Bada Bing either.
Bada Bing, yeah, it's not mentioned. They're just in a strip club.
So she asks Tony if he's depressed. Melfi tries to talk to Tony more about the ducks in the pool and symbolizing his depression. She pushes at it, and he looks at her Tufts degree and says, "What part of the boot are you from, hun?" And she says, "Dr. Milfi. And my father's people are from X. My mother would be really happy if we got together," which is a funny referential moment to think that they were almost husband and wife on the show. So she says anxiety is for real, and Tony goes on rant one about people being pussies and, why does everyone have to go and Sally Jessica Raphael and whatever happened to the strong silent type. Gary Cooper. Not everyone's in touch with their feelings and in touch with this and in touch with this and in touch Bafangul. He goes on and says, "I went to a semester and a half of college. I understand Freud as a concept in therapy, or understand Freud. I understand therapy as a concept, but not in my world." She keeps going, "Are you depressed?" And he says, "Yes, since the ducks left." So we get a short scene with Chris and Pussy where we figure out that Chris fucked up and shouldn't have killed that guy until Pussy showed up. And we also get Christopher, which I think is it's our one thing that doesn't balance with Christopher later on. Yeah, Chris is a fuck up, but he knows movies, and he shouldn't mispronounce Luca Brasi. He calls him Lucius Brasi or something, Brahi or something. And Christopher watches so many movies, he wouldn't fuck that up. Pussy would be the one to fuck that up. Christopher wouldn't. That'd be a Pauly thing to fuck it up, to call him Luca Brasi or something like that, where Christopher would be like, "Pauly, you're an idiot. It's Luca Brasi." It was sort of, they were figuring out the balance between Tony's thugs. But it's a really funny scene, and this is really Pussy's coming out party. And this is Pussy's coming out party. I was going to call you Joe again because I'm saying Pussy coming out. Matt, this is Pussy's coming out party. So now we know we have more people wearing pants. So yeah.
Not only that, but he's saying it's his coming out party where he's also foreshadowing his own a year and a half later, 2 years later.
Absolutely. And we also get some talk about Tony running down the trash business, some problems with New York. Pussy mentions. We also get Christopher saying, "What if T passing out? What if he was like disabled or something?" And it's just an interesting line from Christopher, which you get to know Christopher really well in this episode, as well as some of the other ones. And I can't say enough how well the Sopranos cast some of these characters, and they did a really good job. Whereas someone like Christopher is someone I didn't notice in Goodfellas. I knew the scene and I recognized it later, but it was someone that was one of those things where I had no memory of Michael Imperelli. I'm killed his name from Goodfellas. In the Sopranos made me go, "Holy shit, I got to see what else this guy was in. He was in Goodfellas? Wait a second."
Yeah, but he's like nothing in Goodfellas.
Nothing.
What is it, Spider? Is that his name?
Spider. He's the "Are you funny?" He is the guy that gets shot from Joe Pesci's "Were you laughing at me? Am I a fucking joke?" That whole scene. He's the beneficiary of all of that. Pussy is the manliest nickname ever. I think it's hilarious that there's like two pussies, that he's not the only pussy. And then what's our great line, as we said before, or we haven't got to that. That's our Hesh moment. We're almost there. We're getting towards the end of this episode. So we get Tony, and then we cut over. We get a couple of vignettes of that scene with Pussy and Pussy all over the place, all over the dock. Pussy is sliding all over the dock, and we get Christopher. Sorry, for the few seasons that Pussy's on, we need to take full advantage of we got to do what every radio station in America did and able to say that character name. "Oh, you'd listen to like Bob FM," and they'd be like, "Hey, last night I was listening to watching the Sopranos, and I couldn't believe what Pussy did." It was one of those things that it was, as silly as this sounds, as much as when it really comes down to it, Pussy isn't that big of a character in the series from the beginning to the end. His character was probably one of the more iconic parts of the first half of the series, to the point where when people would say, "Oh, have you seen the Sopranos show? Have you seen that Pussy?" It would be like I remember before I watched the Sopranos, I would hear people talking about Pussy. And they wouldn't talk about Tony necessarily. They'd say, yeah, that show's awesome. They got a character named Pussy on it. So it was very important. It's just one of those things, like, again, like Boardwalk Empire. Oh, there's a guy with his face blown off. Again, I want to read that again. Pussy's the manliest nickname. Okay. So then we cut over to Tony taking Livia and the rest of the family to Green Grove. You can tell that they program the kids because the kids are like, oh, it's really nice in here, Grandma. You should go here, Grandma. Oh, my God, Grandma, everything's really nice. As we get Livia, who's smart as a whip, who spots the fucking door to the nursing home in the back and goes, ah, oh, my God, Matt, this is a fucking nursing home. Get me the fuck out of here, Tony.
And she says to her, that's our, what does she call it? That's our... Is that the dementia wing? Like, what is that?
I think she says nursing wing. I believe she says nursing wing. And Tony tries to get her under control, and she just like, no, get away from me, doing her Olivia thing. And Tony has another panic attack. And it's almost, I know she doesn't, and I'm affected by a later scene. I swear Olivia gets a little smirk in this moment where she's like, oh, are you okay?
And then her character is the most on point of any of them in the first episode. Like, that's Livia throughout the entire show.
I agree.
Change.
I agree. Her and Carmela. I would give it to Carmela too. But the gun thing is very not Carmela later.
Yeah. Well, Junior's himself too, I guess.
Good point. He's very. You don't really get to know Junior so much until season 2. Really, when it really comes down to it. You get to know him some elements in season 1, but Junior really becomes.
In that first episode, all of his henchmen are like old guys. It looks like he's at the club, like the Italian club, with a bunch of other old guys. He has no one young around him yet.
Exactly. Whereas again, right in episode 2, Mikey shows up, and Mikey's a big element of who Junior is in that first season, and to the point where Mikey's more of a character than Junior is in that first season. And Junior does a couple things that don't make sense as we're going to explore this season. Okay. So anyways, Tony passes out again and Livia smiles, I swear. So we get Tony in Milfy's office with his head in his hand, like really pissed off. And Milfy continues to talk about his mother and his depression. And he's like, depression to her is like a trip to Six Flags. But and he talks about the father being like Livia pounding the father into a little shrivel of a man before he died.
But that's where he mentions, where Tony redeems himself. Earlier on, where he said his dad never reached his heights, he does say, but my father, he ran his own crews. To try to prove how much the mother beat him down, he did say, his dad ran his own crew at one point.
Dude, you don't know how much I love that you took notes too. But anyways, so that's gonna be my note taking is gonna be affected differently next week or next show that we do, because I know that you take notes as well, so I don't have to keep everything.
You said you were taking notes. I'm like, well, shit, I guess I got to take notes then. Not as detailed as yours, just little points that I noticed.
That's fine. But like Joe's reaction to that, Joe's like, oh, you take notes, so I don't fucking have to. I can just show up. So I appreciate I can tell you're in education, Matt. Here we go. So his mom, so anyways, we get this whole thing, and then Tony kind of also makes a joke about how Rico is bumming him out too. And she's like, who's Rico? Is he your uncle or something? Or is he your cousin? And she goes, no, Rico predicate. And I was like, oh yeah. And this is also in a moment where we reverse something later that Milfy says. And I want to just mention this now. I also think that excellent work by Lorraine Bracco and her acting from moment to moment with Tony, because she is very, very different in all of season 1, and especially here, than she is after the events of the end of season 1, when her life becomes in danger. And later on, when she's talking pretty curtly to Tony, and Tony's like, were you ever attracted to me? And she goes, yes, I was attracted to you at a point in time, and it shows here. It shows in her first interactions that she is a little turned on by him in some ways. And in this scene, when he's talking, when he says Rico, she gives that like, laughing at him. It develops a little bit more as season 1 goes, where you see that the two of them have an interesting balance. Oh gosh, Spider was pivotal in Goodfellas. It's Brendan Davis. Oh my gosh, we have our good friend from high school as well. Our good friend Brendan Davis joining the chat right now.
Class of 95, I love it.
I know, we're so class of 95 going on in this room. Ren says he was squeaking like a little gerbil when he died. Also, Walking Dead was not noteworthy. I love that one. Good pun. Good pun. But welcome, Brendan. Welcome, Clumsy. Ren, thank you guys so much for joining us live for this this impromptu, or not impromptu, this first Sopranos recap. Okay, so Milfy goes in this whole thing about Tony, all those feelings you're having. No one needs to live their life every day in this world with the pharmacology of today. And one of the best and most iconic lines from this first episode too, Tony says, "Here comes the Prozac." As we get a cut to Tony and Christopher meeting with McAfee's representative, Hesh. This is where we meet Hesh for the first time at the Bada Bing, a strip club owned by...
Finally a Jew for you to see on TV.
We finally get him a Jew. Hesh says McAfee can't pay the money. How can he not pay the money? He's blood dry, man, has no money. But the conversation quickly turns to Junior's impending hit on Little Pussy. This is where we get, I heard Junior wants to kill Pussy, Big Pussy Pancero. No, you think he's going to kill my pussy? He's known...
No, not my pussy.
Not my pussy. The other pussy, Little Pussy, not Big Pussy. So we get Syl giving a free drink. Don't charge these guys for drinks. Or I couldn't tell if this was a Jew slight where Hesh made a dig that he can't get free drinks.
No, I think Hesh, he's too powerful. He's from the old school. He wouldn't disrespect Hesh. I don't think he would, at least. I don't know.
Tom says, wow, Joe changed a lot. And Clumsy Toaster says, class 95. I wasn't even born yet, and I'm an adult. And, thanks. Yeah, thank you, fucking asshole. Thank you, Clumsy. Yeah. And Tim says, this is the all-new and different Joe. He takes notes. Ren's wearing shorts. It's over 90 degrees in friggin' Texas right now. Lucky. So Hesh says, your uncle has a grudge.
Where in Texas? Hold on. Where in Texas is Ren?
Okay, we'll wait for that. They're on delay, so we'll get a response in a minute. Hesh says your uncle had a grudge on your dad. The man is driven by his insecurities. Suggests having Artie leave on vacation, so the restaurant will be closed and the hit can take place. Tony goes to Artie later and convinces him to take a cruise for the next 2 weeks, despite the owner's wife trying to argue otherwise. As Tony goes, "You old Jew, that's really smart," and Hesh turns around this whole other thing into saying, "Hey, how about this old Jew? How about I take points on the money that this guy owes you, that this guy from the beginning that Tony beat the shit out of." And this is where Tony gets the brilliant idea for the HMO scam about charging people for MRIs that don't happen. And this guy McAfee, I keep calling him McAfee like the security company, but I think that's his name. I'm not sure. And talk to him about this HMO scheme, and you can get in on it too, and we can all make a bunch of money. It's a new scheme. It could be bigger than garbage. Well, garbage is our thing. This could be the best thing ever. East Texas.
Okay. It's a big friggin' state, so it's nowhere near where she's from.
Where's Jen from?
She's from right near Austin, like a half hour south of Austin.
Cool. So we see Carmela taking cash out of cans, which is something later, and that's not an issue later too, where Tony doesn't really keep money out in the open in the house. We see him keeping it in the bird feeder. We see him keeping it in other places in the ceiling, but she keeps it right in Campbell's cans. And Tim used to live right outside of Dallas. And Tom says, "Wow, Joe, you've changed a lot." Yeah, he cut the dreadlocks, put on glasses. Dyed his hair a little bit. So we see Carmela.
It's so gray.
Hey, if I had known the recap was coming, I would have watched the episode of The Sopranos. Sopranos is quality. Well, you can catch up. We're going to be doing this for the entire series. So I will try to put these events up around because I think generally they are going to be on Wednesdays around the 5 to 6 o'clock hour. And probably every other week we're going to do them unless schedules change. So probably around this time on Wednesdays, keep an eye out for these Sopranos recaps. And we're going to be going from beginning to end, from here to Kevin Finnery to Don't Stop Believing. We're getting there. Don't stop. East of Texas is saying like you live in the west side of the galaxy.
Yeah.
We got, I think Clumsy Toaster's from around that area too. Are you from Arizona, New Mexico, Clumsy? Believe in that area. Not sure though. Anyways, so we see Carmela taking cash out of cans and the first met, and Carmela and Mama. We get Carmela again being Carmela. Carmela and Mom and Meadow go to Eloise's portrait. We get this whole thing with Meadow being a douchebag to Carmela. And
it's the bitchiest she ever is, except for when Jackie Jr. dies, but she was drunk, so that's excusable. But she's awful in this first episode.
Yes, and absolutely, Tom. We will. This is the best time for Matt and I, generally in the evening around this time. So, because Matt gets up early in the morning, so late night.
4:30. I was up this morning.
4:30.
I don't have an alarm. I just wake up at 4:30 in the morning.
Jesus fucking Christ. I'm kind of like that with about 6. I'm up about 6:30 every day. So, and I can't sleep. I mean, even if I'm up till 3 in the morning, I'm up at 6.
Yeah. I stayed up and watched the Democratic debate last night.
I'm completely wrong. Clumsy Toaster's in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a fucking horse's ass. I don't know where I got New Mexico from. Okay, so most people live in sort of south of the galaxy. You guys are cracking me up in the chat. We also get the "You Got Mail" sign in Meadows' computer. So
oh yeah, that might be the most dated thing in the whole episode.
You got mail. So it's just a scene of Meadow manipulating Carmela. It's basically this scene. Carmela's like, I thought we go every day of our lives. It's just a Meadow and Carmela scene. I don't want to dwell too much on that because there's better scenes later between the two of them. So Tony gives Artie some, because this thing keeps coming back. Like this event that Carmela wants to take Meadow to keeps coming back and gets referenced about 1 billion times.
Yeah.
Then we go to Tony and Artie, and he gives Artie some tickets for a vacation. And him and Christopher just sell this perfect. Oh yeah, it's comps. Yeah, comps from dentists. And we go to Milfy's office, who goes to look for Tony, and Tony's not there yet, or Tony's skipping the appointment. So we go to Artie's wife, Charmaine, and she's not taking any fucking tickets. She's got, it's a scam or sort. I hate that these mobsters come in the store. And comps, what the fuck, Arthur? Arthur, are you a fucking idiot? In what place? And here it comes again, Matt. I'm sorry, I did the voice. In what fucking world would the Dawn of New Jersey be sent on a trip by a bunch of dentists? Someone donated their kneecaps for this. So right away, Charmaine is a douchebag. We find out later that Charmaine is a douchebag because Tony slept with her and then tried to get her into her life. And she kind of was skeeved by Tony after they boned. And this is what this all comes from, essentially, that she feels like she knows Tony better than Artie does because she was on the inside, that she could have been Carmela, and she made a choice not to.
Yeah, and then don't forget later on, the Carmela, the little wave to her at her house.
Exactly. The wave, the special wave. I was actually talking to somebody about that the other day where I was doing somebody a service and they kind of gave me that. They gave me the okay. And I'm like, I'm doing you a fucking favor. Don't give me the Carmela thing.
Right.
Don't give me that. Excuse me. Come here. Okay. So the next day we get pushy. We get pushy pussy. That pushy pussy is such a character. And, big mouth Billy Bass. And then we get Pussy and Hesh, which this is a weird scene too, because Hesh is kind of...
It's a weird scene. Hesh is like a badass, like...
threatening people.
Walk on the rocks.
Isn't this strange? Like Hesh is in the muscle business here.
Yeah.
And Pussy's in the muscle business here. What? Yeah. Why isn't Polly there?
Yeah, let's go take a walk on the rocks. That's his line to him.
Yep. And basically this is just Pussy and Hesh convincing Mahaffey, to do the HMO scheme.
I'm not convincing him as much as, not leaving another option at that point.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
As Pussy wastes a perfectly good ice cream cone and throws it over the edge.
Doesn't look like a man. He doesn't look like a man that's done a lot of that with ice cream cones in his life.
Absolutely. I know, exactly. He doesn't look like he's thrown away a lot of ice cream cones in his life. I never wear pants in this podcast, Tim. I'm afraid to stand up right now to show you guys that I'm wearing. Oh, well,
you'll see his big pussy.
You'll see my big pussy right between my legs. So, actually, where is my little pussy? My little pussy left the room a little while ago. So then we learn that Artie. We get Tony's golfing, and he basically guzzles a handful of Prozac that Milfy prescribed to him, and then he receives word from Polly. It's Polly's thing to do. That Mazzarone wants to talk to him. We get the impression
No, he's not. He's Barone. It's Dick Barone.
Dick Barone. I'm sorry, not Mazzarone. Barone.
No, Mazzarone's the construction guy.
Barone's the trash guy, right?
Barone's the trash guy. That's the thing. He says Dick wants to talk to you. I had to go look up who Dick was because I had no idea who that was because I've never heard of him again after that.
Basically, yeah, and that's where I got confused because we see the other guy a lot more.
Yeah.
Because trash is almost after this episode doesn't get dealt with that much. It just gets referred to. It's like its own business going around the back. We don't get much focus on that. We get more focus on the no-shows. What was that?
No, Dick is at the Satriali's meeting too in the beginning.
Exactly.
I didn't realize that until afterwards, but I had no idea. I'm like, who the hell is Dick? It's Dick Barone.
Dick. So we're learning
Dick and Big Pussy, so it was fun.
We're learning about this podcast is important, kids, because we're learning about Dick and Pussy here.
Yep.
And that's the important thing you need to know.
Big pussy and little pussy.
Take it from us. We're, us old men here. This is the old men podcast about dick and pussy. So we also find that Artie wants to talk to Tony, and he reluctantly gives the tickets back. And it's just a great visual as it pans up to Tony from like a sky shot. It's just, again, as Matt was saying at the very beginning, Sopranos, right from the get-go, they maximize the visuals. And you can tell that more money goes into it later and the stock goes up, especially after season 1 and season 2, everything just goes zoom. But in right from the beginning, they make the most. The cinematography in the show is really awesome.
And that's what they were the first to do, I think, in these cable shows, to say, we're doing cinematography that's like, that you're only going to see in the best movies that have ever been made.
And Matt, ultimately, I would say that it's, and we're going to say this as we go along, The Sopranos is weak on overall story arc. And I can talk about, I think the reason is that because Livia died, because the actress that plays Livia died. What Sopranos shines in is characterization, visual, cinematography, music design. All of that is crazy. I don't think the story sucks. I just don't think it doesn't have an overarching story. It is maybe Tony and Milfy's relationship, but even that gets in the back half of season 6, takes a back seat to the New York thing that just pops up at the end of season 5 because of shut the fuck up, Donnie. Because of what's his name? I'm blanking on his name.
Buscemi.
Yeah, Buscemi's characters stuff. Tony, the other Tony, and all that stuff. Tony Uncle Charlie.
Yeah, but let me say this: for all you want to say about lack of story arc, you get more of a backstory for Tony Soprano in this than you do in the entire series of Breaking Bad. I know more about Tony's life after one episode of this than you ever learn about Walt's life in all of Breaking Bad.
Minus the stuff that you find out about him and the relationship with the company and his relationship with the girl. You got one flash.
Tell me anything about Walt's dad, his mom, his brothers and sisters, his friends from when he was a kid, what his aspirations were when he was a little kid. You'd never get that. And I'm not saying one's better than the other one.
No, not here. I would to go to another point with you. And to agree with you, Matt. And something when I've heard from the guy who plays Gus, that you could say the same thing about Gus there's so much to know about all those characters in Breaking Bad. And there's so much detail you want to know about their lives that you didn't get. Part of what made Breaking Bad what it was initially was some of the mystery surrounding some of the characters. And okay, end of Sopranos podcast. Now we're all talking about PantsCon 2012 here. So that night, Milfy's having dinner with a friend who's arguing, who can't get a seat with Adriana, who can't get a table. Tony comes in with a woman that's not Carmela, and it's not the actress that plays Irina later. The man surprises when Tony greets Milfy and says, "Oh, do you know who that is? Of course you know who that is. Oh my God!" And Tony's like, "Yeah, those painting. What did you say? Those decorating secrets were good for me."
Yeah, those decorating pointers.
Later on, Ren, the whole thing I remember about Paulie is he's a germaphobe. Even the lace is dry. Even if you don't touch the body and the shoe and the bacterium, the migrates the soul. Pansky. Yeah, and I wonder if they, again, did that Paulie germaphobe thing, did that get introduced early, or was that a later thing for Paulie? I want to say that was a later thing for Paulie.
Paulie had 2 lines in this whole episode. Like, he's a nobody. He's not even a main character in this at all.
He becomes
he wants to talk to you, and he says one thing at Satriali's, and that's it.
I think
not Satriali's, Serrani's or Tsunamis, whatever it was.
Oh, we got Joe Dirty Locks listening to us. Hey, Joe Dirty Locks, welcome, buddy. And so later on, Tony has his little bang fest with a woman on the board, Stugatz, and it's Arena number 1, who isn't as funny and charismatic, but is probably more attractive than Arena number 2. And she's running out in JFK's hat, and she noticed something between Tony and Milfy, and noticed they have something intimate together. So the next night, we get a scene that I want to play a clip for. Matt, this is a clip I pulled from the episode. This might be loud on your end, Matt, so be prepared.
Something I gotta confess. What are you doing?
Getting my wine in position to throw in your damn face.
You're always with the drama, you.
You go ahead and confess already, please. Get it over with.
I'm on Prozac.
Oh my God.
I've been seeing a therapist.
Oh my God. I think that's great. I think that's so wonderful. I think that's so gutsy.
All right, take it easy.
But I just think that's very, very wonderful.
What do you think? I was Hannibal Lecter before or something?
I just think psychology doesn't address the soul. That's something else. But this is a start. This is something. Oh, I'm going to shut up now.
Like what? Like right away. Okay, we want to talk about Carmela being a douchebag. Like she can't even like be supportive without being a douche. She's like, yeah, psychology won't handle your soul, but it's a start. Oh, I should shut up. Fuck it.
And Hannibal Lecter is the first. That's the first time they do that, where he mispronounces someone's name for like comedic effect that Tony does.
Right. Yeah, and it happens a lot, especially with Tony.
That's the first time when that happens. Did you notice in that same episode and the episode when he's with what's the Russian girl's name the night before?
Irina.
When he walks into the place the first night, and this is huge, and this is how another reason that you already know that Tony, everyone knows Tony, because first of all, that guy recognizes Tony.
Oh, I forgot that. I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, keep going.
When he walks in the first night, he says, "Oh, Mr. Soprano, how are you? Let me bring you to your table." The
maitre d'.
Thank you. The maitre d' says that to him the first night. Then when he goes in with the next night, Mr. Soprano, I haven't seen you in months. How's everything been?
I had that on my notes too. It was hilarious.
He already knows that, like, he already knows that Tony's obviously there with his girlfriend, and who Tony is, and who Carmela is when he comes in the next night. Is that at Vesuvius? Is that supposed to be at Vesuvius?
No, I think this is supposed to, and that's where I was saying the thing about Adriana. I think it's a different restaurant. And
that's not.
It's not Vesuvius. I think it's like a French restaurant or something like that.
Artie Bucco doesn't have a friggin' maitre d'. I know that.
No, he doesn't. So it's just a really honest scene. And Carmela also says, "Did you tell your therapist?" This is where the guy thing too. She goes, "Did you tell him about your dad?" And yeah, I told him about my dad, but your mom's the one. Your mom's the one. And then we get into Carmela complaining that my own daughter hates me. And we get a scene of Meadow and Chris, which is a big element of the first season too, that doesn't get explored as much. Meadow and Christopher have a definite relationship, not a sexual relationship, a relationship going on in season 1, a dynamic that just disappears after a while. And it's a very antagonistic relationship. That she acts more like a brother to him than she does to AJ when it really comes. Right. They have more sibling chemistry than she and AJ have in my mind. So when they get back home, Christopher calls him to tell, or when they get home, Christopher calls to tell that Little Pussy has arrived in town and Chris is with some random girl, or not Little Pussy, Pussy Malanga's in town. So the next day, Tony and Silvio attend Meadow's softball game and they make plans to enact something immediately. Silvio goes to Vesuvio that night and plants explosives inside at closing time, destroying the party. Getting a party like that together quickly. So we get the feeling that Silvio is a specialty guy that blows shit up. Tony and Meadow talk. We see Heather Dante, who we don't see too often, Silvio's daughter in the scene.
Yeah, I totally forgot she existed.
Yeah, she gets Chuck Cunningham at some point in the series. She just disappears. And we get a funny line by Meadow and Tony have a very good relationship right from the start. Sad Mamala can't even come to my sporting event. And isn't it crazy? And I love her douchey line earlier in the episode when she's like, "Oh, you think people go to Aspen every year? It's not lame things like this. Aspen never happens. It's a one-time deal to go to Aspen." It's just such a douchebag. Tony takes her into this church that his great granddad built, and she is just, I wrote many times, repeated me in my notes, she's just so fucking whiny in this scene.
Yeah,
like,
she really is.
"I'm not impressed. What do I care about Dad? Can we get out of here? Your granddad built this." And it really, and I would say this. She gets a shit ton better as an actress too. She's just not good in this scene, especially compared to how good, maybe not the accent, but just how good of an actor right from the get-go Gandolfini is, and just shows you how much gravitas he has as a performer. Yeah. He just fails with him here. And later on, I wouldn't say that's the case. But in this scene, he's like, you're noticing that she's inexperienced, or at least I am to a point. First, it's a softball game, then it's a soccer. The sport she plays just changes randomly. Absolutely. Hannibal Lecter, son of political debate, son of Mortimer political debate. Thing I remember of Polly is he had pants. Tim likes to imagine that, or likes to know, or knows that you and I aren't wearing pants when we broadcast this show, Matt. And Tony goes back to Milfy and tells her that he thinks he's cured, that the medicine's working. And she's like, nope, cut the shit. The medicine doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. It's therapy. And he eventually goes, I don't have time for all of that. You're gonna have to come and talk to me about my problems. And she's like, cut the shit. And he goes, fine. I had a dream. My belly, I had a dream. My belly button was a Phillips head screw. And when it was unscrewed, my penis fell off. I picked it up, holding it, looking for the guy that worked on my Lincoln when I used to drive Lincolns. And then a bird comes off and grabs my penis and flies off with it. And she goes, what kind of bird?
A water bird?
Flamingo? Is a flamingo a water bird? A pelican? And then this is just so funny. And Gandolfini's reaction and the way he responds to this is fucking hilarious.
He fucking cries.
He cries and she goes, a duck? And he goes, those goddamn fucking ducks. Yeah. And he just gets so pissed off. And you're right, he cries.
That was the other thing that was weird, that he started crying right there. I don't see Tony crying, but
Tim likes to talk about random shit, and that's why I love you, Tim. That's why I love having you in the chat constantly. You always crack me up, and you always keep me on my toes, buddy. So yeah, it's just fucking a ducks, and he just eventually, as Matt said, he just breaks down, realizing the ducks kind of symbolize his own family,
family's scared they're gonna leave him or something like that.
Yeah, shit like that. And now he's gonna cry. And I thought it was really funny too, especially anyone who's actually been in therapy. Like the first time you ever cry in therapy, and you're just like, fuck, shit, and you're like, snot's coming down the side of your face, and then the shrink or the therapist just like slowly slides the Kleenexes across the table. Just that visual of her doing that, like with one finger. She's just like, he's like, fuck, mother cock, shit, fuck. You know how he's wiping his face? Fuck me, I'm just so full of dread. I don't know what's going to happen. This is where I was saying the thing to you, Matt, about everything just being so full of dread that right from the beginning, you get the sense of something greater to it all. And that's why I say the magic, that there's this sense of, it's not, magic isn't the best word, a sense of a mysticism, so to speak, to the entire world of the Sopranos. And in the Billy Bass thing, and the Christopher jumping inside the cat thing, and everything that's sort of a little outside of the vein of reality. That's where I think we're both right. I agree that this could happen in reality, but I also think it's like hyperized, styled reality in some ways, in the way that the angles are shot, and perspectively, magically in some ways, where, you know, Paulie looking at the Tony painting and it talking to him, you know, little things like that coming back and forth with everything in Pine Barrens, as we'll get to that episode that happens in that episode. There's a sense of non-reality as well as reality to it all. And that's kind of the interesting magic. I'd say the same thing about Breaking Bad. And I think that's a similarity that both shows have. And there aren't many. They're both excellent shows, and that's a similarity. But I think that sense of...
And I'm not going to sit here and really just try to tell... Well, I prefer The Sopranos more, but I'm not going to call it a better show, because they're different.
No, that's, Matt, we've talked about this for several years, and it's different things. And it's, to us, it's not about better or worse. I think we can say that in our top 5, those two shows are very much in the mix, and it's about figuring out at different times of the year which one's at what spot. To me, as in beginning to end, I don't know. We'll talk about Breaking Bad later. The Ducks is his family, and his family is emasculating him, says Ren. Good point. Tom says HBO didn't really take root in the Netherlands until a few years ago. Was this the first true HBO hit? There were, gosh.
Yeah, it was.
Hit? Yes. I'm trying to think when Sex and the City came out.
Yeah, but okay, no, you're right. Sex and the City, but that's a different...
It's a different genre. Oz was successful before this, but I wouldn't call Oz a hit.
No.
I
think 6 Feet Under was before this too.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Not even part of it wasn't?
No, you're thinking of The Wire. The Wire was it basically went Oz, Sopranos, Wire, and then 6 Feet Under and
no, I'm calling foul. My phone's like updating. It's the...
Fucking Google us here. We need fact checkers.
Right, I'm doing this. Okay.
But I do think that Sex and the City is such a weird animal, because I think it's hard not to think about the cultural significance of that show, and that putting HBO Entertainment on the map.
Dude, every woman in the world.
I'm wrong. Sex and the City was after this.
Really?
Interesting.
At least during it. Hold on.
I mean, obviously during, but we're thinking about what was first and what really catapulted HBO to what it is from a television standpoint. Then I guess it would be The Sopranos. I get that's a good question. It's a really good question. And
All right, so 1999 was when The Sopranos started.
Okay, 1999. We knew that. And Oz started, I think, in 96, I believe. Oz was like 2 years before that. Yeah, Oz was about 2 years before The Sopranos. So, but I would say yes, The Sopranos was the thing that turned HBO from something that had some good programs on it to the juggernaut of television it is today. I would say
no. Sex and the City was 1998 is when it started.
Okay, so Sex and the City. So actually, Sopranos was filmed first, but Sex and the City was on the air first.
Yeah, it broadcast from 98 to 2004.
Yes, HBO. Oz was HBO. Oz was HBO's first real hour-long drama. That was their introduction to the series. And in a lot of ways, you can thank Oz for pretty much, like we can talk about, Tim and I can talk about Deep Space Nine and a lot of stuff, but Oz, I would really foundationally argue that it was the thing that influenced so many people to create shows in the way that we get the shows that we get today. I think Oz really, and the way that all those actors worked in everything so much afterwards, and in the way that the SVUs of the world that came from Oz, like Oz is so iconic to me. But we'll talk about Oz a different day.
You were right about 6 Feet Under. It was 2001 to 2005.
Oz was 97 to 03, and The Sopranos was 99 to 2006. 2006
or 7.
2006 or 7. Interesting. So to answer your question in a really long turnabout way, yes, I think The Sopranos was the show, or Sopranos, Sex and the City for different audiences. Sex and the City, I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on that, but it's easy for us to ignore the significance of that show.
Yeah, but people like my wife and like any woman that ever watched the show will make reference to it all the time.
It's in a sense similar. I wouldn't say a guy or a girl's version of anything, but I would say it has as much cultural significance as Seinfeld does. In a sense, in the same way that certain types of guys are referential between women together, people even, I'd say Sex and the City is right there with Seinfeld as cultural in our lexicon of culture right now. I've never watched Oz. Ren, if you were ever curious what all your SVU actors looked like naked, I would highly recommend it. It's a dark show. It's a little bit more set up like a theater presentation than some of the stuff you'll see more modern day. But I think it's definitely worth a watch for HBO series. So many actors that you'll recognize on it. And, especially those first 3.5 seasons, halfway through season 4, it is one of the best programs I've ever watched. J.K. Simmons kills it on that show. And so does, if you've ever watched Lost, the guy who plays Mr. Echo, and he's also the cock merchant from Game of Thrones this past season. He's a big, huge part of the series as well. Christopher Maloney from SVU that I mentioned. So many different characters from the Law & Order series. I cannot recommend Lost enough if you can deal with violence.
He means Oz, not Lost.
Oz, yes, I'm sorry. Oz, if you can deal with, it's a depressing show. There's a lot of penis in it and a lot of people getting stabbed. So
that was the first show, I'd say, anywhere on television with that violence ever on it. And people saw that people can deal with that violence as a TV show, not as a movie.
Yeah.
Right? You think of name another TV show where like that shit was happening, where people were getting stabbed in front of you and they were doing weird torturous ways to kill people,
And I have to say one thing, and it's not negative to me, it's a negative to some of the people I've heard complaints about Oz. My cousin Craig has tried to watch Oz several times. He says, every time I watch it, I know it's a good show, but it just bums me out, so I don't want to watch it. Spoiler alert for Oz, not of what's going to happen. They're in prison. Good things don't happen. Good things. It's not a happy story in any way, shape, or form.
No, it's like Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, as Tim said, Adebisi. Yes, our cock merchant Adebisi and Tom. Yeah, they both just doubled up. Adebisi. Yes, he alone is worth watching Oz. Watching Adebisi, and you'll recognize so many actors from so many things on Oz. It's really a companion series to the Wire in some ways. You get a lot of people back and forth from both series. I know this is a Sopranos podcast, but it's worth checking out Oz. And thank you, Tom, for that awesome question that sent us on that great rant. So let's finish up this episode as we're getting close to Survivor time. So, and next episode that we mentioned this, I'll mention this to you, Matt, before. Next time we'll be talking more directly about episode 2, episode 3. This being our first Sopranos episode, we're talking a little bit more about the cultural significance of the Sopranos at the time. So yes, he ends up freaking out and realizing that Carmel and the kids are left, and now he's going to cry. Later at the barbecue, Tony and the others console Artie over the loss of his building and promise he can recoup the insurance money. We get a really funny Paulie line here, which is Paulie's other line in the episode. And then Christopher storms off in a huff after saying something stupid like, oh, it's better that your place didn't blow up, that people didn't stop coming in. So, which later connects to something that happens with Artie at the end of the season when Livia fucks shit up for Tony. So Tony says to Artie in a scene with the two of them, "I'll always help you, Artie." They hug. Then we get Christopher bitching and Tony reluctantly showing Christopher some affection and saying, I wasn't parented with appreciation, so I'm going to appreciate you. And Christopher immediately goes a little douchey and says, "Okay, Tony, if you're going to be like that, maybe I shouldn't even do this job. Maybe I should sell my story to my cousin's girlfriend who wants to make a Hollywood script." He could say I could even play myself. And this is where we get Tony doing his first Tony thing that we see several times later on, threatening people severely he cares about. He grabs Christopher by the scuff, close him close, goes, "You fucking knew to go Henry Hill on me? You think I haven't had offers? Do you believe him? Do you think Tony has had offers, or you think he's just saying that? Lying sack of shit?"
Oh, yeah, he's a lying sack of shit.
He's a lying sack of shit. So, and they eventually hug it out, and we go off to Junior and Livia driving around, and we get a sort of those young kids today, and we get Junior saying, "Tony doesn't give me respect. He fucked with my shit this week. Plus, he thumbs his nose to New York." We mentioned this a couple of times. Remember his crazy hair and his dope, which comes back later on and connects that Tony's first foray into the crime business was selling weed. And then Junior says like, "No, homosexuals in the military, blah, blah, blah." And then right. Livia's like, shut up. And he's like, "No, I'm including you. I get agita every day, Livia." It's just a funny scene between the two of them. And where they're both just trying to get their own agenda out, and they're both balancing, but Livia's wrapping him slowly around her finger. And he goes in, "Well, a lot of people are complaining about Tony, and eventually we might have to do something about Tony." And she just gets a little smirk on her face and stares off into the night. That's the end of our first episode, Matt. Livia, what a douchebag, right? Holy shit.
Absolutely. Like I said, she's the most on point of all of them. The very last scene of the episode, though, it goes to the pool and she shows up and it goes inside and it flashes back to the pool.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And I'm waiting to see if the ducks are going to be there or not, because they're almost like waiting for the ducks to be there, because that's why they would flash back to the pool. Oh, the ducks have come back and they're just not there. And then
they're just not there. Good point, Matt. Very good point. So here we go. We're at the end of the episode. And as we end every episode of The Sopranos on our recap, what I want to do is do some fun facts, everybody. Let's get some fun facts. Here we go. So the pilot was filmed in 1997. The show was picked up for a series almost 2 years later. Now, James Gandolfini's voice is distinctly different in the first episode than it would be in future episodes. After this episode specifically, Gandolfini used a dialect coach to sound more like a mobster from Newark, New Jersey, In this episode, the pork store used as the mob hangout is named something different, as Matt pointed out a few times. It's actually a butcher's shop in Elizabeth, New Jersey, but producers soon after found an abandoned location in another part of New Jersey and converted it into Satriale's pork store. They used that site throughout the rest of the series, but mistakenly or indifferently, a quick image of Satriale's, not Centriades, is included in the pilot's opening montage of The Sopranos. So we also got Dre D'Amato, or however you pronounce her name, appears in the episode as unnamed hostess.
God, I love her so much.
She's a great actress. She's really awesome on Sons of Anarchy too, if you haven't seen that. She plays a vastly different character and definitely not as attractive as Adriana, but she's excellent on Sons of Anarchy, I think, especially towards the end of the series. And second episode, she becomes Adriana. David Chase liked her so much in her small time that he wrote the part of Adriana for her. Tony is referred to as the boss, as well as the Don of New Jersey. Yet in the next episode, a new character of Jackie Aprio is the acting boss, and Tony is only one of many crew captains. And we also hear something about DeMeo, who is in prison in the second episode. From the very first episode that features Tony Soprano's compassionate fixation with ducks to the final episode that deals with Polly's superstition and fear of cats, the symbolism of pets and animals is the series' frequent motive. And that's very true that we get into animals. We'll keep an eye on that as we go through the series. The fish, the horse, there's more too. As the show's creators and the executive producer David Chase is also given writer credit on every one of the Sopranos 86 episodes. Chase also directed 2 of these episodes, as Matt mentioned earlier, the pilot and the highly controversial season.
Son of a bitch.
Which I think that the episode before that, Blue Comet, is a really excellent episode. And I think that's part of the reason why people have a problem with Made America. Blue Comet, such a great episode, and Made America, such a great episode up until that point. So Tony's complaint to Dr. Melfi about the loss of Gary Cooper's strong silent type as an American culture becomes an often repeated regret line in the series. The opening shot of the first scene of Melfi's waiting room, where Tony's triangle is shown in the frames of a sculpture. In season 3, Second Opinion, the exact framing is replicated at this time with Carmela in the legs of the statue. The episode is titled The Sopranos in the DVD release, but the show's official site calls it the pilot. While Tony and Livia are visiting a nursing home, the elderly people are shown watching the Rockford Files on TV. Creator David Chase had his big break on the Rockford Files. The role of Uncle Junior is played by Dominic Chazis, who's almost went to Robert Lagario, who...
that's Robert Loggia. That's who plays Feach LaMotta later.
LaMotta, who later becomes Feach LaMotta. Yep, absolutely. The scene was written for Tony kisses Dr. Melfi, but was not filmed. A similar scene was appeared later in Pax Soprano. In the pilot episode, Father Phil is played by somebody else. In the pilot episode, Arena is also played by someone else. And Matt, that's all I got. You got anything else you want to say about this episode before we go?
Jesus Christ, no.
Okay, let's touch a little bit. Let's touch a couple of things in the comment. Renwood, I loved her in Swordfish too. Oh, I loved her in Swordfish too as well. Joe Dirty Locks is in the chat. Of course, it won't let me comment from his phone, so we had to sign into his fucking computer. Good show, guys. Hey, Joe, are you wearing pants? I'm at work, so yep, pants are on. Okay, so Joe's at work right now. Joe, we love you. We're definitely going to get you in on some of these Soprano episodes here and there as you were around. And as the timing works out and we get into some big episodes, I think on a couple of the bigger episodes, season finales, and a couple of the bigger episodes I know Joe will want to talk about, we'll definitely get you in here for a big 3-way. So everybody, I think this is a good time to cut it off. So here we go. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into our first ever Sopranos podcast. We appreciate everyone that's checking out. If you have any questions that you want to definitely ask for episode 2, you can prepare you can pre-ask us those questions whenever you watch the episode or your comments. Send it to igotissuesman@gmail.com. Or once I open the chat, you can pop it in the questions of the chat. If you want to reach me, you can get me also on Twitter @igotissuesman. You can add me on Skype @igotissuesman. You can leave a voicemail at 781-990-8509. You can also, go to issuesprogram.com, check out our stuff there. For Matt, you can find him on Google Plus at...
I don't even know the name. You made it up for me.
Yeah,
Big Daddy Matt K.
Big Daddy Matt K. So you can follow him on there if you want. And we'll also start a Twitter pretty soon for Matt. Real Big Daddy or some shit like that. But guys, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Tim, Cersei ain't got shit on these bitches, says Joe Dirty Locks. Read that to Tim. I think Tim could read it. Love you guys. We'll talk to you guys next time. Joe and I will be back on Sunday, possibly Friday, for our weekly recap. I got to see if Joe's working on Friday first. Guys, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you so much, Joe Dirty Locks. Big Daddy, looking good, my brother, says Joe. Thank you, Renwood. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Clumsy Toaster. Thank you, everybody that tuned in today. Thank you, Brendan fucking Davis. Love you guys.
No fucking ziti.
No fucking ziti. Yeah, and if you want a Twitter hashtag for this, hashtag no fucking ziti.
Yeah.
Goodbye, guys. Oh, wait, I fucked up the music there. Wait. Goodbye.